Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Israel launches airstrikes in Gaza after Hamas attacks Israel's soldiers in Gaza. Israel says Hamas is trying to blow up the ceasefire. And a major intelligence bombshell about threats to Jews and Israelis across Europe. The government of China arresting and charging 18 pastors and co-workers. We're going to hear from one Christian leader who calls it a milestone in the Communist Party's full-scale war against Christianity in China. We're going to bring you the story of two faith-based organizations working to provide wheelchairs and the gospel to those in need around the world. And a move of God during a gospel outreach on the university campus where Charlie Kirk was assassinated. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Thursday, the 20th of November. Going to begin this half hour in the Middle East, where Israel is warning Hamas is trying to blow up the ceasefire with new attacks. And Israel is striking back against top Hamas leaders. Paul Petit brings us this story. He's reporting now from Jerusalem.
Major break in the ceasefire after Hamas gunmen attacked Israeli troops operating inside the Gaza Strip. The army responded with a wave of airstrikes, targeting a high-level meeting of Hamas commanders. The Trump administration is backing Israel's response, with one senior U.S. official reportedly accusing Hamas of lashing out after the UN passage of Trump's peace plan and an effort to shatter the ceasefire. This as Israel officials warn that Hamas and Hezbollah are rebuilding their forces with support from Iran to reestablish an axis of resistance against Israel. In Europe, Israel's National Intelligence Agency says it has uncovered a Hamas terror network operating across the region that has led to a wave of arrests. The Mossad says they're working with authorities in Germany, Austria, and other countries to expose weapon caches, explosives, and operatives plotting attacks on Israeli and Jewish targets. A key suspect is the son of senior Hamas leader Bassem Naim. Israel says the findings prove Hamas's top leadership is directing European terror operations despite public denials. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a rare visit to the IDF-controlled buffer zone in Syria, calling Israel's presence there vital to his country's security.
We attach enormous importance to our ability, both defensive and offensive here, to protecting our Druze allies, and especially protecting the state of Israel and its northern border across the Golan Heights. This is a mission that could evolve at any moment.
The trip comes as quiet talks with Damascus over a security arrangement for southern Syria has stalled. And a new report out of London is sparking international outrage. A study of 300 Palestinian textbooks and dozens of teacher guides shows that the curriculum is still packed with anti-Semitism, in direct violation to an EU agreement signed last year. The analysis by the Impact SC research group says Jews are routinely depicted as deceitful and inherently corrupt enemies of Islam.
They started with education and rewriting the curriculum. Why? Because they understood that if they want to maintain power, they need to educate a future generation according to their values. The same thing ISIS did when they became a power.
One seventh-grade teacher guide even claims Israeli soldiers bash children's heads in front of their mothers and mutilate women for jewelry, and then it instructs students to draw those scenes. In Washington today, the White House is hosting the Israeli hostages, recently released as part of the ceasefire deal. Former hostage Eitan Moore plans to give President Trump this letter and dreidel to thank him. Paul Petit, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Continue our coverage now with Chris Mitchell, who joins us from Jerusalem. So, Chris, how significant is the Hamas break in the ceasefire, and does it signal more fighting ahead?
Well, actually, Ephraim, it's almost been even fighting throughout the ceasefire, and it does signal more fighting ahead. Hamas has not stopped fighting, and the IDF is taking an aggressive stance about any violations of the ceasefire. This time, Hamas hit behind the yellow line, and it says it's a violation of the 6-week ceasefire. The U.S., as Paul said in his report, is siding with Israel and accusing Hamas of lashing out, breaking the ceasefire, and not committing to demilitarize and surrender control of the Gaza Strip. Now, the ceasefire began last month on October 10th. And then we know earlier this week, the UN Security Council, they approved the 20-point Trump peace plan. But in terms of the fighting, it looks like it will continue, even though there's a quote-unquote ceasefire. And it just signals that Hamas, whether in Europe, as Paul said in his report, or in the Gaza Strip, Hamas is committed to fighting against Israel or Jews wherever they may be.
Hamas and Hezbollah reportedly trying to rebuild their forces. How is Israel preparing for more attacks from those terrorist groups?
Well, they're doing daily strikes in southern Lebanon, and they have been almost since November of 2024 when the ceasefire was put into effect. The ceasefire allows Israel and the IDF to strike against any IDF or any Hezbollah attempts to rebuild their military infrastructure. What they're doing to do that, they're using intelligence gathering, they're using drones, human resources on the ground. On the other hand, Ephraim, they also have reserve IDF brigades on the ready, both on the northern and the southern borders. And ever since this ceasefire in Hezbollah and the southern Lebanon particularly, there's been a new policy by the IDF to willingly go ahead and strike preemptively. And people are calling this the campaign between the wars. They're also working with CENTCOM and other regional allies to both push back on Hamas and Hezbollah on both the northern and southern borders.
What role is Iran playing in Hamas and Hezbollah's rebuilding?
Well, they're the ones behind. They're driving this. They've already spent maybe $1 billion to Hezbollah. They're reopening up smuggling routes inside Syria that had been closed down after the Assad regime fell back last December, sending millions of dollars to Hamas as well, supplying them with weapons, also in particular with Hezbollah, helping them build their own weapons. And so Iran is really the driver behind Hamas and Hezbollah rebuilding. And all this while Iran's water supply is drying up, its economy is on life support. Some people have said with all the money they've been giving to Hamas and Hezbollah, they could have been building desalination plants to provide water for their own people. But the Iranian water supply is dire right now. All the while, they're building up their proxies or rebuilding their proxies in the region against Israel.
Hamas has also reportedly been planning to attack Israel and Jewish targets in Europe. How is Israel coordinating with authorities in these countries?
Well, working with the Mossad and other intelligence agencies throughout Europe, they have foiled Hamas plots that have been hatched in Qatar and Turkey. They're tracking the funding of Hamas inside Europe. Hamas is trying to build, as Paul said in his report, its terror network in Europe. So what other governments are doing right now because of the threat of Hamas is increasing security around synagogues, Jewish schools, actually El Al flights as well, and trying to disrupt the Iranian support, both materially and with the funding as well.
What more can you tell us about these Palestinian textbooks teaching anti-Semitic attitudes towards Jewish people?
You know, Ephraim, this has been a story that we've been working on for years. What these Palestinian textbooks do, they glorify terror and terrorists. They demonize Israelis and Jews, particularly in grades 1 through 4. You know, there's no significant changes. They have hundreds of examples of problematic content. For example, in grade 1, they introduced the whole idea of a shaheed, that is a martyr who gives their life for Islam and perhaps in a terror attack or a suicide bombing. Dalal Mughrabi, she's responsible for one of the worst terror attacks in Israel's history. She's lionized in much of these curricula. Grade 2, they say, we will give our souls for the revolution. Grade 11, they talk that the children of Israel are corrupt. Grade 12, Jews are immoral and hostile to Islam. So this report says there's really no changes despite explicit promises to reform. For example, the EU transferred nearly $500 million, and it was conditioned on educational reform. but one PA official in the Palestinian Ministry of Education said really not a single word has been removed or changed in the textbooks. And Ephraim, the reason why this is so important is this indoctrinates one generation that's been trained in revolution or jihad, and where it unlikely that things could really change significantly if these children are taught this indoctrination.
All right, thank you. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, we appreciate your insights and look forward to seeing you in the days ahead. Coming up, how the government of China is going after Christians in that country. We're going to hear from the leader of an organization that serves the persecuted Chinese church. We've got that story for you when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. The Chinese government has formally arrested and charged 18 pastors and co-workers of Beijing Zion Church who have been detained since October 9th. Bob Fu is the president of China Aid, an organization that serves the persecuted Chinese church. He contends their imprisonment is a shocking milestone in the CCP's full-scale war against Christianity in China. He told CBN's The Global Lane why the government targeted the Zion Church leaders.
Zion Church has been one of the largest urban house church network in 40 cities with over 100 churches, with 5,000 members and reached to over 100,000 Christians every day. And because of this rapid growth, the Chinese Communist Party, since October 9th, launched the most serious campaign against that church. Within 24 hours, over 30 of their senior leaders were rounded up in 9 provinces, and including the founder of the church, Pastor Ezra Jin, and the pastor Wang Lim, as you just mentioned, who actually got a PhD from one of American universities and returned to China with 2 American-born American citizen children. And the human casualty, I mean, the price for religious freedom has been even intensified in recent days after those pastors were under criminal detention. As you mentioned, Pastor Wang Lin's wife and their 2 American citizen children were denied not only the education, but the freedom of movement and the freedom to travel to overseas. They were also under the travel ban by the Chinese Communist Party. Basically, they were denied everything. I mean, the children cannot be allowed to even go to school, and they are not even allowed to rent or even own a home. Whenever they did that, the public security officer would go and pressure the landlord and the owner of the home that they are about to even purchase. They were denied.
Bob, these are American citizens, these children. Why aren't we hearing more from the U.S. State Department or Donald Trump?
I think we need to hear more. We need our elected government officials, especially President Donald Trump, with a platform of American First. And these are 2 American citizens holding American passports. They are basically denied from even leaving China.
And Bob, doesn't the Constitution, the Chinese Constitution and law, guarantee education?
You're right, Gary. I mean, the Chinese government even had their own law and regulations claiming this children's education and even were compulsory and legitimately allowed. And yet, the Zion Church children, and some even lost their homes because their parents or one of the parents were under criminal detention, and their bank accounts were frozen. So this is really the most serious religious persecution against the Chinese urban house church movement we have not seen since the Cultural Revolution nearly 50 years ago.
It wasn't that long ago that the Early Rain Covenant Church experienced similar treatment. So what can you tell us about Pastor Wang Yi?
Yes, Pastor Wang Yi was the founder of the Early Rain Covenant Church based in Chengdu City, and he was sentenced to 9 years imprisonment in 2020 after he preached a sermon based on John 3:16, publicly calling President Xi to repent for his repressive religious policy against God and ask him to accept Christ for salvation. And for that, he was accused of instigating the subversion of state power and received 9 years. And yet, Pastor Wang Yi still holds his faith very steadily and firmly and joyfully. And I was told in a recent visit, he was telling his family member that he has over 1,000 items of prayer requests, prayer items in his prison. He's praying for America, praying for the free world. And some of his church leaders under Early Rain Covenant Church has been under constant harassment and even administrative detention for simply holding their Sunday worship at their own homes. So Xi Jinping launched really the most severe persecution against house churches, and even the government-sanctioned churches had been under attack. Some members were even sentenced to 14 years imprisonment for simply refusing to take down the cross from the rooftop of their church building. So that tells how severely the persecution has been. And yet God has been good and faithful. I mean, the revival and church growth continue despite the persecution. And even in the middle of the persecution, we have seen Zion Church, Early Rain Covenant Church, they have never stopped worshiping God and in their church, in their homes, even since their church were formally banned and declared as illegal.
Okay, more persecution, more church growth. Bob Fu, president of China Aid. Thank you, Bob, for being with us to provide additional insights.
Thank you, Gary, for having me.
Also on tonight's episode of The Global Lane, the U.S. naval build-up off the coast of Venezuela and housing affordability, 50-year mortgages, and young couples achieving the American dream. You can watch that all tonight on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 8 Eastern. You can also find it on the CBN News app, and it's available on YouTube as well. Still ahead, supplying wheelchairs for those who need them, along with the gospel. We're going to bring you this story. It's coming up right after this. A majority of the 80 million people worldwide who need a wheelchair can't get one, often due to poverty, remote locations, and limited supply chains. But two faith-based ministries are working to change that by delivering the gift of mobility and the message of Christ. CBN's Brody Carter has this story.
In many parts of the world, a wheelchair can mean the difference between a life in the dirt and a life with dignity.
We feel motivated by Jesus to do this work. In a way, it's sort of an homage to all of the things that Jesus did when he was here, which is serving the most marginalized. The Bible says the least of these.
That's the heartbeat behind Free Wheelchair Mission, a ministry built on a simple design and relentless faith. Each chair provided is built to last, made for rough terrain to those like DeWitt in Ethiopia or Linda in Guatemala. The gift offers newfound freedom, a chance to rejoin their community, and a tangible sign that God has not forgotten them.
When I bend down and I give out a wheelchair, and that person is praying for me, and I think when I go there that I'm going to be telling them about Jesus, and they're actually showing me who Jesus is.
That mission begins at their Southern California headquarters and spreads across 95 countries with more than 1.5 million wheelchairs delivered. Joining them in answering this call is Johnny and Friends, which refurbishes chairs through its Wheels for the World program.
And we have 12 prisons throughout the United States that recondition those as a part of our ministry. We get all the parts together, we do the training, and these prisoners who are often recommended by chaplains work in a Johnny wheelchair restoration center in 12 prisons throughout the U.S.
President Sean Thornton says each reconditioned set of wheels is only the beginning. The ministry also hosts family retreats for families living with a wide range of disabilities. Worldwide, an estimated 1.3 billion people live with a disability. And according to Thornton, many of those must still fight for access to churches that have deemed the least of these an inconvenience.
The church just doesn't want the uncomfortableness or the disruption of a wheelchair sitting in an aisle or something. They're asked not to come back. A common thread of families is that they're told, you're not welcome here because you're too disruptive.
Since the Americans with Disabilities Act does not cover churches, Thornton estimates only about 5% in the U.S. are fully accessible. This reality fills the need that both organizations seek to fill.
In that wheelchair, we allow for that person, especially those that are believers and have been praying for one, to see in a tangible way that they are loved and not forgotten by him.
Although the work is far from over, each smile from someone lifted out of the dirt proves a simple chair can be a vehicle for a miracle. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Coming up, a move of God during the gospel outreach on the campus where Charlie Kirk was killed. We're going to have that story for you when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. A move of God Sunday during a gospel outreach on the university campus where Charlie Kirk was assassinated was just 2 months ago. Harvest Evangelism reports 2,100 people made the decision to follow Jesus Christ, and they did that live and others online during the event at Utah Valley University. Pastor Greg Laurie preached the gospel message. 8,000 attended in person and 210,000 watched online. The event opened with a video honoring Charlie Kirk's life and faith. Laurie said Harvest wanted to honor him and to share his hope in Jesus Christ. Time now for your Thursday Thankful, and today I want to leave you with this thought and prayer as we navigate another day together. God, thank you for a posture of expectation. That expectation is what gives birth to your manifestation. So I walk today expecting my Heavenly Father to do exactly as He said He would do. And I walk in gratitude for even the weight of the wait. I'm grateful. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online, cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen. You can do that by emailing us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. We thank you so much for watching today. We'll see you back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.